So as we continue our conversation about preparing yourself to be a teacher and taking into consideration all the things you can take into consideration, I want you to consider the idea of being PC. Telling jokes that are not PC and anything that would ostracize any portion of your audience is not going to be helpful. So always keep that in mind. Also, realize that your job as a teacher, as a facilitator of learning, is to find out where your students are and to help them get to the next level. So I want you to constantly assess. Now, in this type of program, a video program, I don't have that luxury. I don't have the luxury of looking in and seeing all the various students watching this and figuring out which level they're at and realizing from that how I can take them to the next level. But what I do have is the ability to overall put out information that I feel and I know will be helpful to people. But when you're in a situation which is a classroom, you've got a bunch of students there, assess things, figure out where they are, figure out where they need to go. Certain students will need certain things. Let's talk about dealing with the class clown. Every now and then, you're going to get the know-it-all or the class clown or the person whose agenda it is to come there and pretty much run the show. In the world of NLP, you come across a lot of personalities like this. Usually they don't develop into something really annoying until later on when that does happen. They get a little knowledge about NLP, and then as they go on, they feel that they know everything. And they feel that they're going to interject everything. That's one option. That's one thing that can happen. Another thing that can happen is just the person who wants to make a joke of everything and wants to draw attention to him or herself. So for whatever reason, you can have someone who is attempting to take the spotlight. And what I recommend doing with this is keeping in mind they are a student. They have paid for the class just like everyone else, so they have their right to be heard, of course. But let it go until it becomes a detriment to the learning of the other students. If it's just something where they feel they have to say something funny every now and then and get a laugh, there's really no harm in that. If every half hour or so they make a joke about something, I wouldn't really worry about that. I would let that go. So by having someone as the class clown, sometimes it can almost add something to the class situation. But if it comes to the point where their remarks are overly sarcastic, where they're actually putting down the learning, or where they're distracting things to the point that other students are obviously frustrated, or anything like that, then it's time to talk to that person at break time and say, look, I understand what you're doing, and I appreciate your contribution to the class. However, I find that it's actually taking away from the learning situation that I'm creating here. So whereas I appreciate who you are and what you're doing, let's try to work together, you and I, to help everyone learn. Something along those lines. But if it's just something where every now and then they want to say something, then I would just let them do it, as long as it's not a detriment to the class. It can actually add to the color of the class. It can enhance the beauty of the class to have a variety of things going on. That way people feel that they're in a less sterile environment. It's more dynamic. It's more interesting. So realize there's a balance there. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the idea that you have a lot of information to teach to your students. And chances are that you've taken my class and you've taken other classes as well, and you've read books by all kinds of people, and you have your own way of teaching. And of course, your way of teaching is going to be the best way of teaching, because every person's way of teaching is the best way of teaching. So you've got your way that you're going to present the material, and you've got X amount of information. Realize that you probably have a lot of information that you'd like to share at each level, at practitioner, master practitioner, and trainer. So realize that you need to reduce this into something that's meaningful and that people can digest. So if you are just doing a shotgun approach and here's all the information, you're just going to say, ready to go, and you're going to shoot it all out at them. Okay, that's how much I got out in that hour. And then the next hour I'm going to shoot some more out. And the next hour, shoot some more out. That's an interesting way to do it, but it's not really the best way for students to learn. Students learn by you breaking things down into meaningful units. We call it chunking down in NLP. So you've got this big chunk of information, you've got all this stuff that you want to convey to someone. You need to break it down into A, B, C, and D, 1, 2, 3, and 4, something like that. Because people can digest things much more easily if you say, okay, now we're going to learn this technique. Okay, now we're going to learn that technique. It doesn't have to be quite that rigid, but having a framework helps. Not only that, but telling people the framework ahead of time really helps. People like to know where they're going. Chances are, before they even sign up for your class, and this will help with your advertising of your class, before they even sign up with your class, they want to have an idea of your syllabus. Where are you going, and when are you going there, and when will we arrive at the end? They want to know all about the journey. They don't need tremendous detail because that comes from the class and that comes from the material that you give them in class and that you share with them, so you don't need to go into great detail, but it is nice if you can tell them what they'll be learning in each class. That way, it holds you to a standard. You have to teach this information, and also lets them know ahead of time what they're getting into. Because if they're just getting into NLP practitioner training, that can mean anything. There are so many NLP trainers out there with their own way of teaching, and some people put some information in the practitioner class, and some people save it for the master class, some people save it for the training class, some people try to teach a bunch early on and then reduce it as they go. There are all kinds of ways to teach. So to just say that you're offering this class, master or trainer or practitioner, whatever you're saying you're offering, that is not very descriptive, because in the world of NLP, it seems that everyone's on their own, and they've taken this information that we've all gotten essentially from the same source. We've added our own information to it, we've made it our own, and then we go out and teach it. But there is really no standardization in terms of what must be taught in the practitioner course or the master course or the trainer's training course. So you are left on your own with that. Use your own information that you have from my class and from other classes, but also let people know what they're getting into, because just saying that you're teaching the practitioner course isn't really descriptive at all. Okay, so I want you to realize that also that you need to be flexible. Things are going to happen. We talked about this a little bit, but you need to remain flexible. You have more power if you are more flexible. Let's say something comes up. Let's say that one day you walk into class and for whatever reason the lights are out. Maybe there's a storm in your area and there are no lights. What are you going to do? Well, as a teacher, you need to be flexible. You have a number of choices. You can either take everyone outside, perhaps where there is light, or open the windows, or have some candles, or have some flashlights, or whatever you want to do. You can make it into a wonderful experience with a little bit of creativity. Or you can just say, hey, class canceled, we're going to do this tomorrow. We'll just double up on our information. We'll start a little earlier, we'll stay a little later, and we'll make it happen from there. So you need to remain flexible, because despite your best plans, things are going to happen. And remember, there's no failure, there's only feedback. Sometimes you're going to teach a class and it's going to feel maybe not the best. You're going to teach a class and afterwards you're going to think, wow, did I really get through to those people today? Did I really change lives? Just like when you're a practitioner, you'll have those days or those moments where you're thinking, wow, am I really making a difference? Am I really getting in there? Am I really changing lives? Of course you are. Of course you are. You just stay the course and everything's going to be fine. There are always fluctuations. It's kind of like the stock market. There are ups and downs, but you're essentially moving forward. You're continuing to do what you're doing, and everything is, unlike the stock market necessarily, everything is actually going to get better, because the more you do the right way, the more positive effect you have. So realize there is no failure, there's only feedback. If you have a situation which doesn't quite go the way you want it to, realize that's feedback. You learned something new.